kick off the new year, we are so delighted and grateful that you have decided to join us for our MSD virtual panel discussion this morning. As our featured panelists dialogue about Louisville MSD and supplier diversity. I am Joy Walker, Supplier Diversity Manager at Louisville MSD. As we look back and reflect upon 2020, many of us can attest to the fact that it has been and was a very challenging year in one way or another. For instance, we experienced the widespread, ongoing global pandemic, civil unrest, political upheaval, natural disasters, grief-stricken loss of dear loved ones here at home, throughout the nation, and high-profile leaders in their own right. And with everything going on, we are all in this together. We're all in this together when it also comes to supplier diversity at Louisville MSD. You know, we are all in this together. And undoubtedly, despite it all and change, which is inevitable, Louisville MSD remains committed now more than ever to supplier diversity as we celebrate 35 years of doing business and specifically supplier diversity. And so we are here today to pay homage and embark upon our significant celebratory milestone as we, Louisville MSD, celebrates 35 years of fostering diversity and inclusion in our supply chain procurement practices and having and sustaining a solid, reputable supplier diversity program. And with that today, you will hear firsthand from our esteemed panelists, which will involve an in-depth discussion amongst the panelists about our intentional long-term commitment to supplier diversity. Because of their steadfast leadership, our MSD supplier diversity program was, is, and remains an integral part of MSD's culture, business operations, and flourishes to this very present day. With their leadership and relentless support and dedication, Louisville MSD remains one of the top leaders when it comes to supplier diversity strategic initiatives and best practices. Afterwards, once we wrap up the panel discussion, we will open the floor for a Q&A session via the chat box. So you will have an opportunity to communicate with our panelists today. So brought before you are our featured panelists. We have Kentucky State Senator Gerald Neal and former MSD Board Chair. Ms. Marita Willis, our current MSD Board Chair. Mr. Tony Parrott, our MSD Executive Director. And lastly, but certainly not least, Ms. Renee Lindsay, our One Water Chief Procurement Officer. So first, let's start with Senator Gerald Neal, and again, our former MSD Board Chair. Senator Neal has an extensive background in law and government. He has served as 5 terms as chair of Louisville MSD. He is a practicing attorney with Gerald A. Neal and Associates, LLC. During Senator Neal's long, distinguished career, he has and continues to serve on many community boards and commissions and in various leadership roles, and has received many awards and honors. Next, Ms. Marita Willis, our current MSD Board Chair. Ms. Willis is currently Chief Empowerment Officer of Hope Collaborative, a nonprofit serving Louisville's distressed and underserved communities. Ms. Willis has decades of experience in community building through her career in banking and the nonprofit sector. Ms. Willis, and I quote, states, MSD work is vital to Louisville's environmental health and safety and has an impact on every resident of this community. I look forward to continuing to serve on the board and the community and helping MSD achieve its goal of safe and clean waterways that help Louisville thrive. Mr. Parrott, MSD's executive director. Mr. Parrott has been in the public utility business for over 30 years and holds top executive director leadership roles and others in the water and wastewater sewer industries. He has served as Louisville MSD executive director since 2015. Previously, Mr. Parrott served as the executive director of the Metropolitan Sewer District of Greater Cincinnati and Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. Mr. Parrott is one of 13 returning members of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the Environmental Financial Advisory Board, the EFAB, and joining these returning members are also incumbent chair and 19 newly appointed members. In addition, Mr. Parrott is a member of the board of directors for the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, also known as NACWA, and was named Public Administrator of the Year in 2013 by the American Society of Public Administrators. Mr. Parrott was named a WEF Fellow in 2011 by the Water Environment Federation. He also sits on the board of directors for the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, again, NACWA, representing Region 5 and the National Board of Directors for the Water Environment Research Foundation. In 2011, Mr. Parrott was also awarded the National Environment Achievement Award in February 2014. And Mr. Parrott, as said, and as I quote, as our nation continues coping with health and financial impacts of COVID-19, the issue of public health has never been more vital. The safety of drinking water, wastewater treatment, and flood protection are more important than ever. And I look forward to continuing discussions on regulatory requirements and innovative financing alternatives. And next, Ms. Renee Lindsay, our One Water Chief Procurement Officer. Ms. Lindsay serves as the One Water Chief Procurement Officer at Louisville MSD. She has worked nearly 27 years for Louisville MSD, serving in various positions throughout the company. Ms. Lindsay, at the executive level, leads all of MSD's supply chain operations, including and with strong emphasis on MSD's supplier diversity strategic initiatives. She is responsible for senior leadership and oversight for the procurement of goods and services, and for administrative and support services, which also includes operations services, fleet services, HR, legal, finance, and IT. Ms. Lindsay has and continues to serve on various community boards and civic organizations. And without further ado, you will hear firsthand from a historical perspective where we are today and where we are headed going forward. Now, I would like to redirect your attention and turn it over to MSD Senior Leader, Ms. Kelly Watson, Equity and Compliance Director, our panelist moderator at this time. Ms. Watson.
Thank you, Joy, and good morning to everyone that is on our call today, and to our panel. It's an honor to be able to facilitate this conversation today, and that's exactly what this is. This is a conversation. I'm going to ask a few questions, and we're just going to have a dialogue around supplier diversity and celebrating this program here at MSD. So my first question to the panel is what does supplier diversity mean? And we hear this term all the time. Different entities and corporations, whether they be public or municipalities, have something around supplier diversity, but what does it mean? Mr. Parrott, would you like to start?
Yeah, and first of all, I want to thank Senator Neal, who is the father of the MSD Supplier Diversity Program, and Marita Willis, who has just been such a great leader supporting everything that we're trying to do as an agency. But you are correct, Kelly. Supplier diversity has a wide definition. And, from my perspective as an executive leader of a utility, supplier diversity is really about making sure that there is access and opportunity for a wide demographic of companies and also people in the community that we serve and people in the community that pay rates to our utility. And so we have to make sure that there's access and there's opportunity, whether we're talking about capital construction, whether we're talking about procurement of supplies, or whether we're talking about professional engineering and consulting services. Demographically, Louisville has an opportunity and an obligation to make sure that there's access and opportunity. When you think about our agency, particularly with operations and capital, we spend over $350 million a year. And so that is significant. And we definitely have an opportunity to make sure that we're being diverse in our spend. And that's what the definition means to me.
Thank you, Mr. Parrott. Anybody else, Ms. Willis?
Yeah, I see it as a business strategy that ensures a diverse supplier base in the procurement and goods of services for MSD, to making sure that all the programs get out and there's a level playing field. I see supplier diversity programs are an important way to combat social injustice. As the spotlight on systematic racism, the programs are more important than ever today. I think we lead that way here in this particular community. It's doing the right thing. It is a business strategy. We intentionally do what we do through our supplier diversity program.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. Senator Neal, you were on the board at MSD when this program first began 35 years ago. Can you tell us at that time how it started, why it was started at that time?
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me, and hello to everyone. Well, historically, the legacy of racism has affected virtually every institution in this nation, and Kentucky is no exception. And of course, MSD is one of those institutions that was so affected. The participation of women has also been historically affected by the historical cultural norms. One of the ways that this has been manifested at MSD and similar institutions is the lack of participation and benefits of contracts and our subcontracts for construction and for the purchases of goods, materials, equipment, and services. The disparity with respect to equitable treatment was and is significant with respect to both minority and women businesses. The deficiency was significant, and it still is one of those kinds of issues that requires more attention. The Minority and Women Business Enterprise Contractor Compliance Program was attempted to formally address these inequities and change the trajectory of these discriminatory business practices and norms about MSD and those that it did business with. MSD stepped forward because it recognized its compelling interest in eradicating the present effects of past discrimination and in promoting equality and economic opportunity among and between its citizens. So it was essential that for this agency to step forward, and I'm so proud, even looking back at the leadership that this agency took in addressing this issue. At that particular time, I must tell you, Other agencies, with the exception of some that I may not know about, were not in the field at this stage. But MSD and its board did take those steps, and it was unrelenting in its commitment.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add from our historical perspective? I know, Ms. Renee, you've been at MSD for a while. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I came to MSD 15 years after the program had started. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of things to change over the years. And I think that we'll talk about some of those later. But just from a historical perspective, we have certainly come a long way. We have taken our program and have just made a lot of great changes over the years to try to enhance the program as much as we can. So I think that Senator Neal has definitely hit on a lot of different things, just with trying to make sure that we have spend that reflects our community.
Thank
and
you.
trying to just continue to increase that.
Right. You know, as we think about what was going on 35 years ago and where we are today, I'm sure there were some barriers and challenges that were in place. Senator Neal, can you talk some about what those challenges were and how MSD was able to kind of solve for them? And then compared to where we are now, do we still face any of those?
Well, you know, there are many subsets of what I'm about to say, but the primary barriers that these businesses face, either as a startup or in sustainability, was an access to capital, which was very essential, and networking opportunities. And both of these affected capacities, which it required to compete in our meet contracting mandates. So I just used two particular areas. There's subsets to that and a lot of other dynamics as well. But access to capital is obvious. If you don't have the funds in order to build the capacity necessary to meet the requirements of those who you portend to contract with, then obviously you're not in the game. And networking opportunities become essential too, because the field out there is not stagnant, it's not static. It's ever growing, it's ever moving, it's ever changing. And through networking, what happens is that you begin to grow and integrate your decision-making, you're building your capacities, establishing relationships that are reciprocal in terms of value and so forth. And if you don't have those, then of course, you run against tremendous barriers in sustaining what you're trying to do. So I would say in those two areas in particular, that's been a problem historically, and it still is a problem with a lot of businesses as we go forward. But I will say that in this particular regard, MSD again stepped up to the plate, and I'm proud of that fact.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add as far as our challenges and barriers, particularly as they played into how the program works today?
I would agree with, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You know, I would agree with Senator Neal. I think one of the things that has been a real barrier has been, what you would call the, existing practice or policy, or even in some cases law that a lot of folks try to utilize to restrict the inclusion process. And so it's incumbent upon utilities to really take a look at really what is your true DNA and what you want to accomplish, and to have a little more intentionality when it comes to making sure that we're making progress with economic inclusion. The capacity issue is another big barrier. We have seen over the last 20, 30 years, a lot of talk about, there really isn't a lot of local capacity to meet targeted goals or aspirational goals in certain areas. And so as the barriers were 20, 30 years ago, there's still some of those barriers. But I think when you think about the financial assistance, the ability to set small businesses up and minority-owned businesses up, we still have to build local capacity to be able to maximize the opportunities. So that's going to be the real big barrier and challenge that all utilities face going forward now and into the future.
Mhm. Yes, Ms. Renee, you were going to also speak on this question?
I think Tony covered a lot of that.
Okay. All
You know,
right.
Renee mentioned earlier that we continuously are fluid with our program, and I think we stay fluid with our program so that we can recognize that the minorities out there that are skilled that can sort of help overcome some of the barriers that we still have out there, because we do want to make them, give them the opportunity to have supplier diversity needs for them.
Absolutely.
If I may address this a little bit further,
Yes.
because it's something that Tony Parrott said that should not be dismissed or dealt with very lightly. The resistance for overcoming these historical disparities has always been ever apparent. And they've been apparent through challenges, to steps that have been taken to try to create equities in this particular area, and not just MSD, but across the board. And the fact of the matter is that some of the even contractors, at least historically, I can't speak to it now, someone that's in the program now or associated with MSD would have to speak to that if they choose. But back in those days, it wasn't like people were smiling and let's do the right thing sort of thing, even though they had a benefit in diversifying. There's a significant benefit in diversifying, and you can articulate those all day long. But this whole thing, the system that was set up to maintain itself, as most systems are. And to make a change and ask folks to change or to participate in another concept called fairness and equity and inclusion was a different ball game. So the reaction to that was always present in the process and always was looming at some point or the other.
That's exactly
You know,
right.
and Kelly, I think the one thing, and maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but the one thing that I think it's important to point out, I mentioned policy and law and all those things that lead to those potential challenges. That's why MSD stepped out in 2016 and did the disparity study. Because once you have that data, you're in a better position to be successful in dealing with any type of challenges that may come about. And, from our perspective, our disparity study data reflected that over the previous 5-year period that we studied, over 95% of our spend, which is over $1 billion during that period for capital and professional services and goods and services. Approximately 98% of that spend was with companies that were either owned or managed by Caucasian males. And so less than 1% of that spend over the 5-year period went to Black-owned businesses. And so that is the data that you need to be able to bring forth in the event that there is some type of legal challenge. And so I think MSD, if I'm not mistaken, probably is probably the only public entity in the state that has recently done a disparity study. And so, I would just say to those listening that, one of the things that you have to do, if you're really committed, if you want to be intentional, you must commit to doing a disparity study because that is the data that's going to support the goals and the strategies that you implement into your utility.
Thank you. As we talked about the disparity study that was done in the program over the last few years, Ms. Renee, can you talk about some of the changes that have occurred and even some of the recommendations that have come from the disparity study?
Yes, we've had quite a few changes that have come from the disparity study that we have recently implemented. One of the major changes is our subcontracting goals for construction. It has changed from a MBE of 15% and 6% women business to 18% African American subcontracting goals. as well as 2% Asian Indian and 15% for Caucasian women. So these goals are more specific and more targeted to making sure that we correct the disparities that were found in the disparity study. In addition, totally new for MSD is we've implemented a bid discount, a 10% bid discount to incentivize minority and women-owned companies to bid with us as a prime. We found this to be very effective for us thus far in this new program. Also with the bid discount, some of the other recommendations that were made is that MSD expanded supplier diversity program to also include field monitoring. There needs to be a component of a supplier diversity program, so it's not just paper pushing, so that minority and women-owned companies who have been awarded contracts, that we're actually following up in the field to making sure that they are truly being able to fulfill their contracts. So that has been an enhancement to our program. Community benefits was another added feature, a recommendation that we've implemented to our program. And this was established to ensure that contractors are making contractors, consultants that are awarded contracts, that they're providing a financial contribution, volunteer hours, and our in-kind services to nonprofit organizations. That has been a huge for MSD. Local labor was already part of our program. The board implemented that some time ago, but we have also enhanced that to include the job links to that as well. So we've had quite a few changes that have been made. Another recommendation that was made was to implement a small local business enterprise program and sheltered market. So that is still under development. This will be the opportunity to bring in race, gender neutral businesses to do some of our small work and allow them to be able to get a footing in the organization to help them grow capacity as well. I wanted to mention one of the barriers that we would hear people talk about. You know, MSD does a lot of construction work. There was a $25,000 threshold where there was bonding that was required. Senator Neal, the General Assembly passed House Bill 26 into law in 2019. So that increased the bonding requirements from $25,000 to $100,000. So that gives some of these small companies an avenue to be able to work with us and any other agency that has that requirement to at least be able to overcome that barrier. Those are just some of the things that have been changed. Oh, one other thing that, that's payment verification. We have implemented payment verification. Tony, as part of the executive leadership, you have established an EUM measure to make sure that we're paying our vendors, processing their invoices within 30 days. That's important because minority and women-owned companies and small businesses cannot afford to float their money for long periods of time. So we want to make sure that we're paying our vendors on time, and in turn, they're paying their contractors and subcontractors on time as well.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you spoke about, which I've been working with MBEs for a long time, is the field monitoring piece. Can you talk about how that lends to the legitimacy and the credibility of the program? Because I know a lot of times we find that we'll have our minority business owners or women business owners that are kind of taken advantage of in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll say the MSD has really done a great job with the supplier diversity team. When we bid things out, we want first of all, these prime contractors and consultants to let us know who they're planning to work with. And not just to tell us, we want to see your proposals to come in along with those bid documents. Then if you are awarded the contract, then we also want you to submit sub-agreements that have been signed by the prime contractor or consultant and their subcontractors. MSD matches that with what they originally turned in to make sure that they have not made any changes to that. Then with the field monitoring, we follow the project all the way through to make sure that we have somebody that's out, first of all, that attended the pre-construction meeting. So they're involved up front. They are talking with the prime contractors as well as our project managers to let them know that they are going to be on the project site. That the expectation is that if you have awarded a contract to a minority or women-owned company, they are to fulfill their work. So we are in the field looking at that, going on the job site, making sure that minority and women-owned companies are actually doing the work that's within their contract, and they're doing it with their own workforce as well as their own equipment and so forth. And then there's, verification. And I think that people know that we have someone in the field has just kind of keeps people on the up and up, so that they're not switching companies out or they're not working with the company. So, and if we see that, you've got a contract with someone, you're 50% into this project, they haven't started working, we want to know why. Mm-hmm. And then there are sanctions that, MSD has in place so that if contractors are not doing what they said they're going to do, then we can deal with that as well.
Mm-hmm. That's so important. Thank you for talking about that. As we've talked about the program and other entities, whether it's in public or private that have a supplier diversity program, Ms. Willis, what do you think has made MSD's program so successful over the years?
Everything Renee has said. Wow. I think because we keep it fluid and, we get great recognition for the things that we're doing, but I think it goes back to leadership. I mean, we're intentional about supplier diversity. It is not a window dressing to us. It is part of our business strategy. We have resources for that. I think our corporate goals, so the expectations, the accountability is there. So, Senator Neal, 35 years ago, when you started this or had that insight of this and look where we are today, it's because we're intentional about it. I mean, we started, we might not have been today, we are intentional about it. Renee just mentioned that we have people out in the field monitoring this. Before we didn't have that. We know that that's very important, but I think it gets back to leadership. Tony's leadership around this, it is part of our business strategy. And then when it became part of our corporate goals, I can tell you as the board chair, and I think I can speak on behalf of the board, it's one thing that makes me very proud of what we're doing around supplier diversity, even in the playing field. And I'm sure this community is very glad that we have all the things in place to make it happen.
If I may step in just for a moment, this issue of the benefit and the business aspect of it, as an example, in this instance, this idea that we're talking about here is a chance to create a construct to make collaboration an additional requirement to encourage working together. And that's a very important dynamic in business. And this offers also an opportunity for primary contractors, for instance, to diversify their capacities. Mm-hmm. That's a win. And then you have the networking offered, challenged businesses to participate, enhance their capabilities, and potentially grow. So if you look at this, I'm just reflecting on what Marita Willis just said, this is a win-win proposition.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
And Kelly, I would just add that, when you think about the overall financial and economic benefit of investing in infrastructure and what that means to the local community, for every dollar that is invested in infrastructure, it returns about $2.62 to the local economy. Mm-hmm. And for every job that is created for infrastructure, it is a total of about 3.5 jobs, direct, indirect, and induced, that are part of our community as well. So when you think about diversity and inclusion, you have to mirror that with economic and financial gain for the community that we are serving, mm-hmm. and the communities that are paying our bills, are paying our rates. And so it's important that access and opportunity be something that small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses have a seat at the table. When you look across the country, Louisville, and particularly along the Ohio River, every major city is doing massive capital programs and will be for the next 10, 20 years. And so we have an opportunity through supplier diversity to make sure we're building local capacity, we're creating opportunity, we're building wealth in our communities, because infrastructure is probably the biggest investments that's being made in each one of our cities.
Mhm. That's very true. We talked a moment ago about some of the program elements that we've changed over the years. I know that there are other supports and things that we've talked about as far as networking opportunities and contractor capacity and training and things of that nature. What other things do you think have made MSD successful in this that can also be for the actual benefit of the vendors and contractors that we actually do work with? I know there are things that are in place, and I know it's an ongoing thing, and the environment is always changing, and we've got right now just so much work that's going to be happening within the city within the next few years. How can we make sure everyone is included and gets a piece of this work to build their own financial wealth here?
Well, I'll start and I'll let Renee chime in, but I know that we have been very intentional in hosting monthly How to Do Business with MSD workshops. I think it's open to anyone interested in doing business with us. And so we make that available for folks to, we conduct debriefing sessions with unsuccessful bidders to help them understand where they fall short so they can be better the next time around. We've partnered with the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Atlantic Region Small Business Resource Center, to assist minority-owned and women-owned businesses with bonding, access to capital, preparing bids, and we're starting to work locally with One West to make sure that those type of assistance and plan rooms are being set up. We're also partnering, or going to be partnering, with GLI, a local chamber of commerce, who is also putting up initiatives to assist building capacity and resources for small and minority-owned businesses. And we also Can You Dig It event, which is necessary because it allows us to conduct workshops designed to assist companies interested in working with us as a prime contractor. Very important word. Heretofore, most minority and women-owned businesses have been subs. And so we need to graduate to talk about how do we get more of these companies to be prime contractors, and really look at those programs within our utilities that will allow that to happen. I know with MSD, we have a DRY program, which is a program that will definitely have projects at a scale where folks can come in and be primes. And so those are the types of things that we're trying to do in addition to all of our strategy and all of our policies. So with that, Renee, if I missed anything, you can take it from there.
I think that you've covered quite a bit, Tony. I'll just piggyback on what you said about, our DRY program. We have found that to be a great place for minority and women-owned companies to bid with us as a prime and take advantage of that bid discount. So we are definitely trying to do everything that we can do to make sure that people are equipped to learn about our work. So during those How to Do Business workshops, we are talking about how do you submit a successful, responsive bid. Doesn't guarantee that they're going to get it, but at least when they are taking the time to bid with us, we want to make sure that they're not found non-responsive. We want to make sure that people understand our supplier diversity program and the components of it, because if they don't meet it, they can be found non-responsive. So, we work with our engineering team with these workshops to make sure that they are also talking to our contracting community on what they are expecting to see. So, we're still trying to expand on that. But those are just some of the things that we're doing to try to make sure that people are equipped and learn how to do business with MSD and try to set them up for success.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that we're still doing this work in the midst of this pandemic. So
Yes.
We're still out there doing this. It didn't stop for us.
Right. And that's so important right now, particularly with so much that has highlighted the disparities and the systematic and institutional racism that has been in existence forever, right? And so now we're actually looking at and see the data, right, around what that means for minority-owned business owners and Black-owned business owners, and the fact that COVID has put so many people in distress, business-wise and personally. It's very important that this work continues even more so than it was before. With that said, and continue with our continued efforts in that, do we have any, success stories or some examples of that we have from supply diversity? I'm sure that we do, that we could share today.
Just in general, Kelly, we've had a lot of success stories. We've had, over the years, we've had companies that have had startup businesses, for example, and they may have started doing one area of work and then have grown their businesses to do other things. For example, we've had someone to start a company doing mowing. They started mowing, was awarded a small contract with MSD that was essentially a 5-year contract. They were able to take their contract and let the city know, for example, that use us as a reference, and they have been able to also get contracts there and then have expanded to do snow removal now. That's an example. We've had somebody that come in, started out doing janitorial, and end up, we work with them and they help develop them into working with our water damage and restoration. We've had another company to come in and start with janitorial and was cleaning more of the buildings. And now they have expanded into doing construction cleanup. They're working on our tunnel project and have been awarded a pretty substantial contract there. We've had companies that have just started doing business with MSD and have been able to grow and continue to work with MSD as well as other places. So we've had quite a few companies that have been successful in working with MSD, continuing to work with MSD, and have also been able to grow their capacity to be able to work other places as well.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Like I said, and as we think about the times that we're in right now, and the distress that we have, why do we think it's so important at this particular moment to be really strategic about what MSD's contributed to the community around supplier diversity? And what are some of our ongoing efforts and additional efforts that we have going forward at this time, where we're still looking to make sure that we're a vital contributor to the community? Anybody?
Well, I'll just start. And, the one thing that I think all of us can acknowledge is that 2020 has been a very challenging year for our utility, our city, with the pandemic, and of course, with some of the civil and social issues that we cannot ignore. And so I know, at least from our perspective, because of the stuff that we are doing, we are being recognized and also being asked to assist in other strategies that would raise awareness and create more of a focus on what we should be doing, particularly around diverse spend and around spend for Black-owned businesses. As you all know, Mayor Fisher convened a equity task force in procurement this fall. And I'm so honored to be co-chair of that, along with the Paul Thompson, who is the CEO of LG&E KU. Our work under that task force is identifying the cumulative capital spend for all of the task force members over the next 5 years, which is approximately $5 billion. And of that spend, what are we as a task force going to commit to establish as goals for diverse spend with minority-owned businesses, but then more specifically with Black-owned businesses, and what type of skill craft areas and what type of local jobs are going to be created because of that work. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that going forward. But when you think about where we are with our community and with our city. Again, as I mentioned before, infrastructure is a very big investment in what we do locally. And so how do we maximize those economic benefits that infrastructure brings to the table? And how do we make sure that there's a grand strategy to make sure that we're addressing Black-owned businesses and also the wealth disparity in our communities? The task force work that we're doing, from my perspective, is work that should have been done 50 years ago. And so here we sit. And so it's so important and more important that we be intentional and that we bring forth access and opportunity. And MSD is a big player in that game. And at least for the current board that we have, there's a lot of support for us to continue the strategies that we've put in place, and we're so proud. The one thing I will also add is that when you think about any utility, when you think about being intentional, there's also that internal culture issue that you must address with your leadership. And so we have a chief engineer, David Johnson, Renee, Lindsay, and others that are committed to making sure that we're making a difference. And so we can't forget about that. You've got to have that change in that internal culture to be successful as well.
If I may, I just want to give a perspective on this.
Mhm.
When we started this back then, one of the things that we were trying to do was to become leaders, to demonstrate what could be done. It wasn't just what we were trying to do at MSD. And what really excites me about this discussion and observing MSD over the years, and particularly under this leadership, is that not only has that grown into fruition, I can see the interconnection between MSD and other agencies, the influence it has because of the girth of the organization itself, the intentionality and the commitment that's been demonstrated throughout. I mean, this is not something that's some harebrained scheme overnight. This is something that's come into its own, and it has its own capacities and validity and respect. And what that means is that by being a leader, this organization shows what can be done, how it can be done, that the barriers are not insurmountable, and that each other institution is challenged by what MSD does. So I applaud MSD, and I applaud those who understand the value of what has happened over these 35 years, and particularly what is happening now under this leadership. It is very refreshing and it's very hopeful.
Mhm. Yes, it is. Before we start taking questions from the chat, so if you still have some questions in the group, now will be the time pretty soon to start thinking about what those are and submit those in the chat. But and we mentioned this earlier, several entities have, a program that may or may not be as successful as they would like it to be, or the impact is not what they would like. What would you say to someone who said, I am really trying to turn the corner with my supplier diversity program? How can I make this better and have the impact that MSD is having?
Is that generally offered?
Yes, that's generally offered.
Well, I gotta dive in again. Forgive me, but let me just say, all of it begins with leadership. It's a leadership question, and those words, intentionality and commitment, are not just errant phrases or words. The fact of the matter is, if your leadership is committed, it can achieve the result, and the MSD is a personification of that. So when someone that's in a leadership position asks that question, it always causes my eyebrows to go up, because there's plenty, not just here in Louisville, but across the nation, demonstrated commitment processes. There's plenty of examples of how to achieve. And if you take your internal capacities and research that, you got one right here in our own community right now that's experienced, that's way out ahead of the field from my perspective. And that includes the city and the state as well, as far as I'm concerned. And just one other thing, if I may, Kelly. This question was raised some time ago about the program, this piece where you did the investigation to deal with the data to show that there was discriminatory practices, et cetera, that needed to be corrected, which was the foundation for you being more assertive now and how you're doing this piece. We tried that at the state level, and this is a very key thing for organizations. We couldn't achieve that there because the feedback was that they never asked the fundamental questions and created the records upon which we could get the data in order to sustain going forward as you are here. But many of these entities that are out here can do this. You have set the model in terms of this. And I think there's really no excuse for any leadership in this community and beyond to say, you know, we can just sort of create this as a secondary or tertiary issue when we know that not only has it been addressed or is being addressed, but also it's being done effectively.
Right.
I totally agree. And I would say it has to be intentional. It has to be intentional. It's part of your business strategy. And leadership, like Senator Neal said, is the major key. And you have to put resources to it. You can't just have a conversation around it and say that's something you want to do. Intentionally and resources with the leadership can make it successful.
If I might add, just to kind of circle things back here, is when you talk about being intentional and allocating resources and so forth, you know, MSD has been very intentional with how it outreaches and communicates its supplier diversity program. As Tony mentioned earlier, on an annual basis, we conduct our Can You Dig It meeting. And the purpose of that is so that we do this in conjunction with the Louisville Water Company, but the purpose of doing this is to let our business community know what our program of work is for the year so that they can plan for work. So we're trying to be very transparent with people, letting them know what the opportunities are on the front end. And again, we conduct workshops, everything that we can do to potentially help people be successful in working with us. We also, with some of our outreach, we have been hosting a joint utility with the Louisville Water Company, LG&E, and Louisville Metro Government. It's been almost 20 years now. This is an opportunity for minority and women-owned companies to meet with our leaders in our organization, as well as decision makers, and as well as prime consultants and contractors, and try to connect with them. Early on, we talked about having access and being able to network and meet people. So we provide platforms for people to truly do that. We've had a lot of major contracts, such as our tunnel project, the Shawnee Basin, and all the other basins that we've had, and some of the projects that are coming up. We have targeted matchmaking sessions. So we know what type of opportunities are available to subcontract. We put them in front of those people who are interested in bidding with us so that they have access to talk with them, provide their capabilities, and otherwise they probably would not have been able to do that. So we have been very intentional about our program and how we outreach. We've partnered with several companies, organizations such as the Tri-State Minority Supplier Development Council, the Women Business Enterprise National Council through ORV, U.S. Small Business Association, as well as Louisville Metro Government. We reach out to them to help us to outreach to people that are in their database. So we are really being intentional with making sure that people understand our program. Tony mentioned early on that MSD looks at our opportunities. Well, we have allocated resources to work with a WBE firm to look at our 5-year capital program and to determine what projects are available in that program, what opportunities are available, so that we can target our outreach efforts to companies that can truly do business with us. So, I think that the success of our program is because of the resources that have been allocated to, as far as personnel and staff is concerned, as well as the ability to be able to contract to get somebody to look at our 5-year spend, we're serious about what we're doing. And I think that, you know, the leadership here has definitely allows us the latitude to be able to do those things so that we are successful in our program. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that.
Absolutely. We talked about our monthly workshops and the Can You Dig It? Do we have any other additional information we'd like to share with everyone as far as upcoming events or when those are held so that they can maybe try to jot those down or contact people here at MSD if they're not sure who they need to contact, and additionally to you all on this on the panel?
Yes, the Can You Dig It is on January 21st. It'll start at 9 o'clock with some workshops, and then the presentation will start at 10. We're going to be doing it virtually this year. This is our 6th year doing it. So we wanted to continue on with that because the work continues to go on even during COVID. So we want people to still have access to that information. So it will be done virtually. If you're interested in attending that event, you can reach out to us over our website or at at Louisville MSD/purchasing and register to join that virtual event.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we can now, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Joy because we may be able to now take some questions from the chat.
Thank you, Kelly. And once again, thank you very much. You have had an opportunity this morning to hear from our highly regarded panelists. And so, you know, some of the things that have frequently, repeatedly come up in our dialogue are things such as be intentional, intentionality, commitment, board leadership. And at Louisville MSD, these things are highly interwoven within our culture. So from the past, the present, and moving forward as well. And so with that, we have an opportunity to allow the participants to ask questions and address those to our panelists. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep an eye on the chat box, and as questions appear, I will read those and I will direct those to Ms. Kelly Watson, and so that she can ask and present those to our panelists, if that works for everyone. And in the meantime, while we're waiting on the questions, we can continue the dialogue, Kelly, if that works for you, and as well as the panelists, we could just continue to have a little, you know, round rotation of discussion, because, you know, these are very, very important times. And, you know, again, we just can't thank each and every one of you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to help us to celebrate 35 years of supplier diversity. And so with that, Kelly, we can just continue to dialogue, and I can present those questions as well as they arise. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joy. I know another question that has come up that is really important within the MSD program is, Mr. Parrott, you said that we look at those bids and are willing to talk to contractors around why they did not get that, or what was missing from that. Do we have any advice for a potential bidder as far as what are the common mistakes that they are making as they try to submit bids to MSD?
I think that would be a good question for Renee.
Yeah. Some of the things that we see is sometimes they don't always submit all of their documents, or documents that are required to be signed and notarized. They may not do that. That's pretty much a common mistake. Oftentimes, as far as supplier diversity is concerned, if people are saying they're not going to meet the supplier diversity goals, or they're doing a partial of that, they do not fill out the GFE, the good faith efforts information properly or in its entirety, and provide all of the documentation that we have requested. Those are some of the things that we find that that people do. So when we do debriefings, Kelly, we have debriefings. Procurement or the engineering team will do a debriefing if that's typically an issue for someone. And then supplier diversity also does separate debriefings when there are issues that are related to the supplier diversity program. So, in both areas, there are some different things that take place that causes people to be found non-responsive. And then other times they're not found non-responsive, but people will call and they want to see what they could have done better when it comes to an evaluated bid. If they've left information out, just putting on the procurement hat, when you're evaluating a bid, you can only allocate points based on what they have actually submitted. Some people will assume that information, well, this company does such and such. If it's not part of their package, then of course they can't be bid on that. And a lot of times those are things that people miss out on. But in supplier diversity, it's typically that people have not submitted their proposal page, their M&W proposal, because we're asking for those to be turned in up front as well, or they have not submitted their GFE paperwork properly.
Okay.
Great. And Kelly, if I may, it looks like we do have some questions now that are populating in the chat box. So, so here's the first question.
Okay.
Is there a need for administrative contracts or contracts for project management?
So I'm assuming that question for you, Renee, is there a need at MSD for administrative contracts or project managers?
Our project managers are through our engineering team, and I think that they have adequate staffing for that. And when they don't have that or have a need for it, of course, we RFP those types of things.
Mm-hmm. What type of, because we've talked a lot about our capital projects in the construction and construction related area, but do we have a significant amount or do business as far as our professional services or goods, and do we need to make some comments around that as far as our needs are concerned?
Yes, our supplier diversity subcontracting goals for professional services have remained 15 and 6. In our disparity study, we did not have enough information to provide the consultant to make a determination on what those goals should be. So they have remained the same. So if the engineer's estimate is $50,000, we are looking for them to subcontract out with 15% with minority owned businesses, as well as 6% with women-owned businesses. And these goals now are aspirational. But I will say that when we say that the goals are aspirational does not mean to submit 0. We are still expecting our business partners to work with minority and women-owned companies and to show their efforts in which they have made to work with them. We're also trying to revise our procedures on how we are awarding our contracts. We are looking to meeting with diverse businesses and connecting them with our engineering team just to kind of see where their capabilities are, and if there's an avenue for companies to receive direct contracts, because we do have a little bit more flexibility in with our procurement regulations with engineering projects. So we always look to try to work directly with minority and women-owned companies in prime roles.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Goods and services, we work with the supplier diversity team. Typically, those do not have subcontracting goals. We are looking for people to work with us as a prime. So we do work with supplier diversity to make sure that before we advertise anything for bid, we want them to communicate, to reach out to our business partners, let them know that this bid is coming up, and let them know everything they need to do to register to receive the notification. If they want to do an open records request to see how much we've paid for something in the past, to see if they can be competitive up front, those types of things are available for them to do, and we encourage that.
All right, thank you.
So our next question is, are service disabled veteran-owned small businesses, SDVOSB, recognized in your supplier diversity policy?
No, MSD recognizes, minority and women-owned companies. And again, we have specific goals for African-American, Caucasian females, and Asian Indian Americans. And then as far as our bid discount is concerned, Hispanics, Americans, as well as Asian Pacific Islanders are also eligible for the bid discount. Disadvantaged businesses are not part of our program at this time. However, as we develop our small local business enterprise that is more race gender neutral, and companies that are certified in those areas will likely be able to work with us, will likely be able to qualify for our small local business program. That allows us to be able to bring more people into the program.
Thank you. Joy, we have any other questions from the chat?
Yes, we do have a few more questions, time permitting.
Yeah.
Are there plans? Let's see here. Give me just a second. You gotta love the technology. What role have MWBEs played in helping MSD maintain its projects and operations during the pandemic? And it's a two-part question. The second part is, what disciplines and scope areas do you see the greatest need in 2021? And I will repeat both questions. What role have MWBEs played in helping MSD maintain its projects and operations during the pandemic? And what disciplines and scope areas do you see the greatest need in 2021?
Okay. All right. Again, MSD has not slowed down on its bidding. We've had, we're still awarding engineering contracts. We've had minority and women-owned companies to help us in that area. We are still working our tunnel project. We have significant supplier diversity participation on it. So we have not stopped. We, as mentioned earlier, we have implemented our bid discount. We've seen a lot of our contracts, even in the month of December, I think we took 9 contracts to the board, and out of that, 7 of those companies were that were awarded the contracts were minority and women-owned companies. So we've been seeing quite a bit of that since we have started our bid discount. We've had quite a few projects that have included our new supplier diversity goals, and our companies are certainly meeting that. We've had a couple of companies, minority African-American owned companies, in fact, that have been awarded major contracts with us. So, the minority and women-owned companies are continuing to work with us during this pandemic. We've had help from, as far as COVID-19 is concerned, in receiving supplies. We have leveraged our relationships with our companies that we were doing business with anyway, some of those being minority and women-owned companies that have been able to supply us with goods and services that we've needed for COVID-19. Then you ask about what our needs was. Can you go with the second question again, Joy, please?
Absolutely. So the second part of that question, what disciplines and scope areas do you see the greatest need in 2021?
Okay, I'm glad that you asked. I have, as mentioned, we've worked with our WBE company to look at our program of work and to let us know what types of projects would be advertised in that time and what we are looking for. So, and I'll just give you, because I've got it in a 5-year range, that MSD has about 25 electrical and instrumentation projects over the next 5 years that combined total of $15 million. So there's an opportunity for people who provide electrical instrumentation type of work. Our bread and butter is sewer pipe work and sewer construction work. For these, we need people that suppliers of pipe, manholes, concrete, aggregate, saw cutting, and things of that sort. A lot of our work is in the road, so pavement is also needed. So, and we anticipate on having 50 sewer projects over the next 5 years, and with an estimated budget of over $225 million. So those are some opportunities in which we are certainly looking for people to work with us. We have trucking. We have, as I mentioned, electrical, plumbing, roofing type work, just quite a few disciplines that we have that we're looking for things. I would invite you to attend our Can You Dig It meeting. We will be going over all of that information there. And again, I think that you'll find that we have quite a few opportunities that are available. We will provide our program of work for the for this calendar year. In my presentation, you will get information about what opportunities are available, so it will answer this question. If you are a person that provides goods or materials, we'll also let you know what type of projects that we are going to be advertising this calendar year in regards to that as well. So January 21st.
Great. So we have another question. Congratulations on your 35th anniversary in supplier diversity. Lexington Fayette Urban County Government has issued a RFP to conduct a disparity study. It's the first for LFUCG. Are there any insights you can share?
Well, make sure you keep good records, because I mean, we had to go and pull records from everywhere, from our 5-year term, from 5-year time period that they were looking for, and that would be the best advice I could tell anybody, is make sure that you keep good records, that you're able to provide them with as much information as possible, that you are that you all have defined what your service area is, so that you can get an accurate disparity study out of that.
And, you know, congratulations on Lexington Fayette County for doing that. I'm assuming that's coming from Sharita.
Yes.
And if there's anything that we can do to serve as a support or resource as you navigate down that path, do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Great, thank you. And what are some examples of goods and service contracts that were awarded in 2020?
Oh goodness, let's see. You know, MSD awards, chemical contracts, and I don't have a list in front of me to tell you that. But we award chemical contracts and goods and services. We award plumbing supplies, plumbing materials. We have aggregate that, you know, we're going to be bidding out here pretty soon. So, I mean, we just, anything that MSD needs to operate its business are the things that we procure, obviously. But, and again, I just don't have the list of everything that we have procured in 2020, but I do have some things that we're going to be bidding out in this fiscal year. We are going to be bidding out, again, chemicals. We're looking at safety supplies. We're going to be bidding IT support. I think we have that's coming out. There's pipe fitting and other aggregates are just a few of the things that we're going to be advertising in this calendar year.
Great. Another question.
Just mention this too, Joy. Even if it's something that we don't bid, because we, you know, nothing has to be bid until it reaches $30,000. There are also small dollar purchases. So, you know, MSD has small purchase procedures. So if we've got something that is less than $30,000, we'll either contact 3 vendors to quote, to provide a quote to us for those types of things. So it could be a gamut of things. One of the things that we require staff to do is if it's between 10 and less than 30, then we want 3 quotes. We want one from an MBE, a WBE, and a majority-owned company. If there is not an MBE or a WBE, but there are 2 M's and W's, we want to make sure that diverse businesses are getting an opportunity to quote our work as well. Anything that's less than $10,000 only requires 1 quote. So we have the ability to contact whoever's going to provide us with our best value. So those are always opportunities for people to work with us, even if it's a small scale type of project or our purchase.
Excellent. Is there a way to check bids? And this is actually a 3-part question. Is there a way to check bids prior to submission? Are there examples of particular types of contracts? And are there any businesses that can supply this type of service? And if you'd like me to repeat the first question, I'm more than happy to do so.
The first question, someone asked, can you receive bid information before a bid is advertised? MSD is a public agency, so if you want to find information out about a bid, if you want to find information about how much we're paying for things, you can do an open records request and get that. You can go out to our website. There's a form that you fill out. You have to tell us exactly what it is that you want, because we're only going to provide you what you've asked for, and that's how that works. The second question, Joy, was what?
Are there examples for particular types of contracts?
Our bid list is posted out on our website, so if anyone wants to know what type of things MSD procures, that information is available on our website.
And the last part of the question, are there any businesses that can supply this type of service?
Again, all of our projects, our contract things are listed out on our website. I would invite that person to attend our not our joint utility, but our Can You Dig It meeting, and attend one of the sessions with the procurement team, and they can give you a bit more insight on perhaps to help answer that question.
Excellent. As a new small business, how do you become MBE certified and become a vendor of MSD?
Okay, first of all, MSD does not accept does not certify in-house. We accept certifications from the National Minority Supplier Development Council and their affiliate council, the Women Business National Council and their affiliate council for women-owned businesses. We also accept the U.S. Small Business Administration 8A certification. We accept the Louisville Metro Government Human Relations Commission certification when they do a desk review and site visit. So those are the places where you can get certified. And then once you are certified, then you can go to our website, get information to get on MSD's in MSD's database. As far as bidding with us, we have a couple of our bids are advertised either in Bonfire, depending on what type of service you provide, or Lynn Imaging. We recommend that you register in both places so that you do receive email notification of bid opportunities.
As an first generation immigrant, how can we start the process to become affiliated with MSD?
The first thing I would do is to connect with MSD. You'll want to know about what bid opportunities we have. I think that it is a good idea to attend one of our How to Do Business with MSD workshops. That will also give you instructions on setting your registering your business for our bid notification. It will also give you information about our supplier diversity program. You can attend our Can You Dig It meeting later on in the month. We'll also give you a lot of that same type of information. So the first thing, and it also allows you to get connected with MSD, because again, there are sometimes that MSD does not bid, and oftentimes that is a matter of people knowing what companies are available out there. So that's the benefit of being in our certified list, because we're going to always go to look at that list first. And that's a benefit of attending some of the workshops that we have, or the outreach events that we have, so that you can get connected with people who do make buying decisions.
Excellent. And the next question, I believe the panel has addressed aspects of this question, but I'm going to also read it from the participants. Joy, and this is a question for the panel. Joy, as a newly registered business with MSD, how do we work to gain introduction to the engineering or other technical service buyers to make them aware of our capacity, experience, or technical specialty, especially in light of COVID-19 protocols?
Joy, I'll just answer that. I mean, have another form of outreach that we do is we have set up one-on-one meetings. Joy or her team members will usually set those meetings up, help facilitate them with our engineering teams. So if anyone is interested in doing that, then please reach out to Joy Walker to set up those type of meetings. We can do those virtually now, which is what we've been doing since the COVID.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. That pretty much concludes the Q&A dialogue from the chat box. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to you, Kelly, as well as our panelists. If you all would like to share any final words, parting comments, words of wisdom from yesterday, today, and tomorrow, where we're headed. We thank you kindly for your time this morning. So I'd like to turn it back over to you for a few minutes.
All right, thank you. For some closing remarks, Mr. Parrott, would you like to start?
Yeah, again, I just want to thank all the participants today. I think we had over 115 participants on this Zoom today, so that's very encouraging. I want to thank Senator Neal and Marita Willis, our board chair, also the MSD board and any board members that are on the call today. Without the leadership of the board and the support that they have put forth for our utility to be intentional, to make sure that we're moving forward and being progressive in the space of economic inclusion and supplier diversity. I think we are setting an example for others. I would also say that going forward, I would encourage other utilities, other entities to follow suit. You cannot continue to hide behind policy or law. You need to create your path and be intentional because it's a part of your company DNA to make sure that there is economic inclusion and access and opportunity for minority-owned, women-owned, and Black-owned businesses. So proud of the MSD staff that is managing our program and managing everything we do from a capital perspective. We have a great team of folks that are supportive and committed to doing great things. And so thank you all for listening to us today.
Thank you.
I would say, as the board chair, I'm so proud to be the board chair of MSD. I ditto everything Mr. Parrott just said. I congratulate and celebrate all the things that you all are doing with the supplier diversity. And during this time of racial injustice, I just ask you to keep pushing forward, to keep pushing forward. You all are doing a great thing. Our community is so proud of you, and the board is so proud of you. And to Senator Neal, from where you begun to where we are today, brother, my hat's off to you. And I sat in the chair that you once sat in. I am so proud, and that makes me so happy. Thank you for all you do, continue to do around supplier diversity and for MSD.
I'd like to just say thank you so much for those very kind words. I want to thank you for allowing me to participate in this event today. I want to congratulate MSD for the work. What I've heard today is enlightening and comforting to me. And I look forward to even greater things from this organization under the leadership of Tony Parrott and Marita Willis. God bless you all.
Yes.
Thank you. And Renee?
Great job, Kelly.
Thank you. Yes, great job, Kelly. Thank you for facilitating this for us. Joy, thank you for even coming up with the idea of doing a panel discussion. So thank you for everything that you do. Again, Mr. Parrott, thank you for your leadership. Ms. Willis, you just thank you for everything that you all do. And Senator Neal, I have so many shoulders that I have rested on, and I certainly thank you for everything that you've done to help us with getting this kicked off and continuing to support supplier diversity. And thanks everybody for participating.
Yes. Yes, thank you to our panel and thank everyone for participating. We are wrapping up right on time and on schedule. And I hope everyone is able to join us for our Can You Dig It at the end of the month. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great
Bye.
day and Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Bye.